Hello. Today I'm going to read a story from one of my favourite books, the Puffin Book of 5-Minute Bear Stories. I've read these stories to all 4 of my children as they've grown, and I've read them for years and years and years. And today I'm going to share Baldilocks and the 6 Bears. It's by Dick King-Smith. There was once a magic forest, and in it lived fairies, pixies, elves and goblins. Some of the goblins were full of mischief, and some of the elves were rather spiteful. But on the whole, the fairy people were a happy lot. All except one. He was a hobgoblin, not bad looking. He might even have been thought handsome, except for one thing: he hadn't a hair on his head. Someone, probably an elf, had named him Baldilocks, and that was what everyone called him. How sad he was. He envied all the other fairy people their fine locks. Each time they met at the full moon, in a clearing among the trees was a huge fairy ring, and in the middle sat the wisest fairy of them all, the Queen of the Forest. As usual, everyone laughed when Baldilocks came into the fairy ring. "Baldilocks!" someone would shout, and then the pixies would titter, and the elves would snigger, and the goblins would chuckle, and the fairies would giggle. All except one. She was a little red-haired fairy, not specially beautiful, but with such a kindly face. She alone did not laugh at the bold hobgoblin. One night, the Queen of the Forest said to Baldilocks, "Would you like to grow a fine head of hair?" "Oh, I would, Your Majesty," cried the hobgoblin. "But how do I go about it?" "Ask a bear," said the Queen of the Forest, and not a word more would she say. The very next morning, Baldilocks set out to find a bear. He soon came to a muddy pool where a big brown bear was catching frogs. "Excuse me," said Baldilocks, "could you tell me how to grow a fine head of hair?" The brown bear looked carefully at the hobgoblin. He knew the only way a bald person can grow hair is by rubbing bear's grease into his scalp. But he wasn't going to say that, because he knew that the only way to get bear's grease is to kill a bear and melt him down. He picked up his pawful of mud. "Rub this into your scalp," said the brown bear. So Baldilocks took the sticky mud and rubbed it on his head. But it didn't make one single hair grow. The next bear Baldilocks met was a big black one. It was robbing a wild bee's nest. "Excuse me," said Baldilocks, "could you tell me how to grow a fine head of hair?" The black bear looked carefully at the hobgoblin. He pulled out a pawful of honeycomb. "Rub this into your scalp," said the black bear. So Baldilocks took the honey and rubbed it into his head. It was horribly sticky, but it didn't make one single hair grow. The third bear that Baldilocks met was a big, gingery one that was digging for grubs in a nettle patch. Baldilocks asked his question again, and the ginger bear pulled up a pawful of nettles and said, "Rub these into your scalp." So Baldilocks took the nettles and rubbed them onto his head. They stung him so much that his eyes began to water, but they didn't make one single hair grow. The fourth bear that Baldilocks came across, a big chocolate-coloured one, was digging out an ant's nest, and by way of reply to the hobgoblin, he handed him a paw full of earth that was full of ants. When Baldilocks rubbed it onto his head, the ants bit him so hard that the tears rolled down his face. But they didn't make one single hair grow. Baldilocks found the fifth bear by the side of a river. He was a big old grey bear, and he was eating some rotten fish. When Baldilocks' question had been asked and answered, and he had rubbed the fish on his head, they made it smell perfectly awful. But once again, they didn't make one single hair grow. Baldilocks had just about had enough. He almost began to hope that he wouldn't find another bear. But he did. It was a baby bear, a little golden one sitting in the sun. "Excuse me," said Baldilocks, "could you tell me how to grow a fine head of hair?" The baby bear looked fearfully at the hobgoblin. It did not answer, so Baldilocks said, "I expect you'll tell me to rub something into my scalp." "Yes," said the baby bear in a small voice. "What?" "Bear grease," said the baby bear. "Bear grease?" said Baldilocks. "How do I get hold of that?" "You have to kill a bear," said the baby bear in a whisper, "and melt him down." "Oh no!" said Baldilocks. When next the fairy people met, the Queen of the Forest said to Baldilocks, "You haven't grown any hair. Didn't you ask a bear?" "I asked 6, Your Majesty," said Baldilocks, "before I found out that what I need is bear's grease, and to get that I would have to kill a bear and melt him down." "That might be difficult," said the Queen of the Forest, "but perhaps you could kill a little one." She smiled as she spoke, because she knew that high in a nearby tree a small golden bear sat listening anxiously. "I couldn't do such a thing," said Baldilocks. "I'd sooner stay bald and unhappy." Up in the tree, the little golden bear hugged himself silently. After the others had gone away, Baldilocks still sat alone in the fairy ring. At least he thought he was alone, till he looked round and saw the little red-haired fairy with the kindly face. "I think," she said, "that bald people are much the nicest." "You do?" said Baldilocks. "Yes, so you mustn't be unhappy any more. If you are, you will make me very sad." Baldilocks looked at her and to his eyes she was beautiful. He smiled the happiest of smiles. "You mustn't be sad," he said. "That's something I couldn't bear." And that's the story for today.